I remember telling also this story for kids, which was about it's a folk tale called the ogre who doesn't have a heart. Story goes, a king, he's very sad. He doesn't want his sons to leave him, but then finally they do, to get some wives, and the youngest son is left there, and while traveling, they're very happy. They meet their wives and they come back, and an ogre who doesn't like their shouting makes them into stone. So the youngest son, he manages to leave to save them all. And I was asking myself, but why is this king so protective? Then I thought, but where's the queen? And then I got this image, and I suddenly saw the queen sitting on her throne, clutching her heart and falling down and dying. And I realized, of course, he's filled with grief. He can't bear to lose it. So then I added on these things, and suddenly it became clear to me that the ogre is actually a representation, at least in my interpretation, of his grief and how he can't bear with anyone else to be happy. And suddenly that became a topical theme. But that's an interpretation. It's not necessarily this is the truth of the myth, because myths are, and folktales are changeable, and they can always adapt to the times. And you can also create new ones, and I also work with that in a way. We're creating new stories, I made a performance of stories for kids, which is about a robot, so it's more somehow contemporary in a certain very near future, about a robot that's called Promus. But I've based him on, it's called Promus because I'm based him on Prometheus, which is the Titan in the Greek mythology, who gave the gift of fire, aka technology, to God. He gave it to man. He stole it from the gods and gave it to the man, so he came with some kind of new knowledge. That's the metaphor I'm using, which no one needs to know, because it's just my... But this robot, he's programmed to say nice things. He works at the UN building, and he's programmed to say nice things, but then through the machinations of the daughter of the main technologist on the EU, he gets access to the new chamber of the UN, and he sees this YouTube film about war. And because he's always programmed to say nice things, suddenly about people. He can't deal with the fact that this is war, because she asks him what is war, and that doesn't compute, so he becomes self-aware. And tries to ask what is war then he's trapped, because he's it's a self-aware robot. But in the end he basically teaches, because he teaches all the people in the UN Congress that by channeling the starlight, that we are all stardust, and so we are all the same. So that's also like a mythical story, but I've kind of like based it on the idea of Prometheus, who brings the light to man in a way, but for kids. And there's a mix between a kind of, it's not really it's like kind of like a science fiction story, so in a way it's a fantasy story, but it uses a mythical idea, but in a new form, or a new tale in a way. So by reading all these folktales and myths, you get an idea of what to choose and what to do. Yeah.
You were talking about earlier this performance where you bring the kids into the story with you. You're telling you have a group protagonist. You're all in this room together as the kind of partaking in the story that you're telling.
Yeah.
How do you control if they're allowed a certain amount of choice? In this interactive performance, how do you control that they don't suddenly choose something that's going to, derail your story completely?
It's a very good question, and I don't know if I am, if I've reached the final verdict on that one yet, because it's been through development. I had some ideas when I started, and I realized I had to redo that completely every time. In I would say the first 4 performances were really trial runs, but then I found a model that was more functionable. It's about being very clear, having some clear rules from the start, and saying that we are here, and also that we practice on certain things. That when I do this, it means that we go close, and when I do this, it means we stand. So we practice some simple commands in a way, and that they're all agreeing to do, so that they will remember. And which I can use if things go out of hand. But I also allow a certain amount of free imagination. But it's usually within that I give them. In this case, I guess it's possible to go even further than I do in this particular case. But the choice I've made here is to give the opportunity to make a choice within restrictions. Not like totally free choice. Let's go to the moon, because then you will go to the moon and something which will totally derail everything. But and also, like, we're looking in this particular case, it's called Where is Bolla. The performance is called Where is Bolla Hedgehog. So we know that the object of the play, which is based on the Norwegian singer-songwriter Alf Prøysen's world, is to find Bolla Hedgehog, Bolla Pinnsvin. And because they know the title, they're always very curious about it, and so they meet these characters who are all looking for her, and so there are certain things that we do. Like shouting for her and then going further, but when I usually ask for things like you find something and you find something that is connected to something she wore to school. What did she wear to school? And then they are the opportunity to within that be very free with their imagination, and then it can be a sweater or something else that can be very absurd. But it doesn't matter as long as they have figured it out. And then we use that later, and so we use that so the sweater can have a function different than if they found a school bag later on. So that there's a constraint, but within those constraints there is freedom. So to try to make sure that those constraints are as clear as possible, so that the story does not derail. Because that's, of course, you could do that too, but then you would have a different performance where the focus was even more on their interactivity.
Is it maybe you have to then be a very good improviser?
Yes, that's
because if they suddenly say that, it's very different if they say that she wore a hat or if she wore shoes or whatever it is that they find, and you're going to be using that, and that's actually going to have a function later in the story. Then you have to really think on your feet.
Yes, that is. But that's also something that's like a quality that I am also exploring for my own, in my own artistry, you might say. So, yeah.
I'm just thinking, because we're making these videos, perhaps mostly for writers, so looking at the aspect of writing. Of course, you are a writer-performer. So you can change your world, you can change your work as you're going through it. And I'm just wondering if a writer actually writing a play, if it's possible to make the kind of structure that you made.
That's interesting.
And just kind of
for
leave a gap.
Here
you bring back object A, whatever it was. Good luck. This is the point that you need to get to next, right?
If you're good at, I mean, the entire idea of interactive dramaturgy, which does exist also in computer games. I mean, I'm also an avid gamer, so love playing adventure games, and I still do. And there's a lot of episodic gaming with interactive choices, which in a way you get a feeling of making an interactive choice within that frame, but still you're always ending up at the same place. But you get the feeling that you're choosing your journey through it. And to have like several options, and you might end up having a bit different experience here, but you will always have to get back to the same place. So I think, if it's possible there, I think it would be possible as a playwright too. But then of course it would demand a certain type of performer, I guess, to be able to deal with that. But I think absolutely, if you're very clear where you're going to end, and you can imagine the different pathways there. I'm actually wanting to make something that is even more interactive, and that actually, because now it's still one path with some variations, but next time I want to explore that. How do I create where you can maybe have 3 paths to the same goal, for instance,
or 2-3 different goals for that matter,
or 2-3 different goals for that matter. Absolutely, not necessarily just one goal. Absolutely.